Hey, it's Mopar Keith, and thanks for joining me for the part 4 of this little mini series on the Survivor 1970 Challenger RT. This is the final installment. We're going to do a walk around of the paint. We're going to start with the bottom of the car. We're going to start with the valance panels, front and rear. We're going to talk about how they were painted, bolted. We're going to talk about the undercoating and the rocker panel blackout, which kind of coincides with the RT cowl blackout and the core support blackout. Same paint function. And then we're going to pull it outside. We're going to do a little walk around, talk about some of the chrome and the bright work. Then we're going to get it back over into the storage unit. And we're going to talk about the paint thickness. So stick around to the end. As always, please subscribe, comment, let me know what you'd like to see on this channel, and we're going to keep producing Mopar content. Thanks for watching. All right, so this section of the video is going to be devoted to the valance panels and a little bit of the underside. Now, it's commonly known that the valance panels were installed for painting and then removed as the car went down the assembly line to get the gas tank installed. Now, the gas tank straps, they go up inside there, and the valance panel was then removed and then bolted back on. So here is a typical fastener. It's a stud and a nut that attaches to the quarter panel. We'll go over and look at the other side here. So here's another stud and bolt, and this is 1970, so stud and bolt. Now, I have found it on some cars where it's just an actual bolt, so no stud involved. But this particular one, it's a stud and a nut. All right. Then we've got, I believe this is a 10 by 32 screw. So we've got a bracket back there with the screw. Now, this screw I did have to install. That is just a hardware store screw that looks pretty good, but the original screws were gone. Here's the other one. Now the bracket is original, and that's the thread size on that square nut inside there. Let's see, what is the other one? All right, so on the same bracket, now that's an original screw. On the same bracket, it's also a 10 by 32. And then over here, this is a capture nut, or I guess you'd call it a spring nut. And then like a wood screw style or a really coarse thread style screw that goes into that. And that's on the corner. All right. So there's that attaching hardware, not the original style license plate screws. Here is the license plate. There's that screw. And then on 1970, they have a filler panel, and I'll let it down and show you that. Now the filler panel, it's right inside there. It basically takes up the gap between the bumper and the rear crossmember and taillight panel. Let's see if we can get a picture of a screw. Probably not. The panel is attached right back in here by Phillips screws that run the length of the width of the car. And here's another picture of that right in there. Let's see if you can get any. Yeah, you can kind of see it right in there, that thin piece of tin. All right, so that should take care of the rear of the car. Let's go to the front. All right, so here's the front valance panel. You see your marker light. Correct style screws. All right, let's get into the inside of it here. All right, so in here we've got bolts with spring nuts. We've got the bumper bracket, bumper bolts. Let's see if we can get to the inside of the valance panel here. There we go. So that's a bolt and a spring nut that's inside the frame rail. Then right here we've got the grill and the lower part of the valance attached to the hood latch support. And then here's the lower core support. Got one bolt there. And that's a spring nut. And the hood latch support has some welded square nuts on there. There's a condenser. Go to the other side here. And let's get up inside there. All right, so bolts with spring nuts. We'll conclude this valance panel thing by the license plate frame. So you pretty much tell this has never been removed. It's got wax and all kinds of garbage stuck in there. So you can get a close-up of that. There we go. That's your license plate bolt. Oh, check it out. And there's a nut on this side. So what's going on there? Let's see if we can get inside and take a look at what that's all about. It's like just a nut and bolt situation. Just got flipped around. Alright, so there's your front valance panel. Alright, this part of the video will be about the front wheel undercoating and where it's covered and where it's not. So when I had the battery tray out, I applied some grease to these spring nuts and some of the bare metal so it didn't rust. Now, the undercoating was masked off so it did not cover the suspension area and it did not cover the bumper mount area. But as you can tell, it went clear up into the wheel arch, and they didn't cover it where the light was attached so they could get a good clean surface there for the light to mount. And not around the wheel arch so they didn't get it on the paint. There's an area here where it was masked off, so they didn't want to shoot undercoating inside the engine bay with that rubber cover off. There's where your P valve is attached. Masked off in this area. And then, like we've discussed before, fuel and brake systems were installed when the car was undercoated. So there's your e-brake cable. Torque box area. Spring nuts and studs. And not really any spacers in this one. We've seen a lot of them with big spacers inside there. Now, another detail item on this car is it did receive the lower blackout. So you can see remnants of the blackout there. Rocker panel area had remnants of undercoating sprayed on it and the blackout. And I'm sure that area right there is just worn off, but it was fully intended to be blacked out. We'll go around the other side and check it out. So that's when you looked at the car from the side. It's kind of like the core support blackout. There was no reason to see paint under there. So this is the right side of the car. Need to get something on this rust so it doesn't attack the car anymore. So studs and spring nuts, blackout. Not much black on the bottom of the rocker on this and no undercoating. So you could see on that driver's side how they really got the undercoating everywhere. There's your fuel line clamp on the main supply line only, not on the return line. There's some return line clips. Just tie it together. Fuel line clip. Now this area where the spring perch is attached was masked off for the undercoating. So we've had these cars apart and we've seen a nice square area where there was zero undercoating applied. There's your fuel lines completely buried in undercoating and a clamp. The rear frame rails and fuel tank were often just blasted with undercoating. We'll just kind of finish out back here. So frame rails completely coated, rear splash areas completely covered. Now this gas tank had to be replaced, but you can see here on the original straps, undercoating completely covered it. And we do still have the original tank and is just completely covered. All right, so at this time, let's pull the car outside and get a closer look at what's going on with this paint. All right, so the history on the car, I do understand that the current owner's father purchased this car like 35 years ago, and obviously it's been inside like every day of its life, and the car has lived a pampered life. However, the odometer does show 54,000 miles and change. So from day one, this car has been babied. Now, it was sold brand new in Ames, Iowa, and from what I understand, it's never left the state. So this car is just never left Iowa, and it's always stayed in the central Iowa area. The paint has been buffed, and we are going to do a paint gauge thickness measurement on it here later in the video. But the hood has been repainted because at one point there was some damage done around the Dodge letters, and so the center of the hood had to be repainted. Totally original wheels and trim rings. The chrome has a little bit of pitting. It's not perfect by any means, but just shows super well. And we are going to buff on the paint a little bit, but really it just shows some dings and minor scratches throughout. No stripes, RT badging, and just super original. And the car just looks striking. The T6 dark brown poly has the original hood pin lanyards. You can see the RT blackout on the grille. When they did repaint the hood, it matched really well. One thing that's really cool about this car too, since it's been really well maintained, all the badges, the antenna, the glass has almost virtually no scratches on it, which if you've seen a lot of Mopars that have the original glass, it's always scratched. Like I said, the original tips are there. Chrome is starting to pit a little bit. There it still shows its Ames, Iowa dealer badge on it. Kind of a cloudy day, but the paint is just super reflective. Get some close-up shots of it here. Just a striking color, and the interior with the white vinyl top really looks great on this car. Alright, one last thing, we're going to measure the thickness of the paint. Okay, so we're over here in the storage bay, and we're going to take a paint thickness reading with our paint gauge right here. And let's just start with the hood where the only repaint on the car is. And right around in here is where the damage was done, and we know that it's been repainted, especially right here. So let's start with the reading right here. So we got 7.3 on the gauge, and we'll just do a couple spots throughout the hood here. So right there you can tell there's no extra primer, and it's just basically another coat of paint. So right here, once again, there's definitely more primer and bodywork done right around these letters where it was damaged. So 2.5. So we'll go around and do a couple parts of the car where we know it hasn't been repainted. 3.1, a little bit thicker there.
let's go over to the driver's side here. Here's the driver's fender, and it doesn't look like any repairs have been done here, but let's see what we got. Whoa, that's actually kind of thick. I'm wondering why that. So let me zero this out just to make sure. All right, so let's go back and check that out. All right, there we go. So 3.5, that makes more sense. So we'll go on the side of the fender, and that's 2.03. We'll go down the side here. And you can imagine, so these cars were painted by hand. It's just two guys on an assembly line, and they're just trying to pump these cars out as fast as possible. So you can imagine if you're up here spraying, you're spraying and spraying and spraying, and then down here, maybe you don't care how much paint you get on it. So a lot of times we'll notice like the top parts of the car have a lot more paint than the bottom. So let's just kind of go through the areas here. So 2.12, and down here on the bottom, well, he got a lot of paint there, so that's 3.2. And we'll just work our way down the car here. So top of the door, 2.87, middle of the door, 2.25, bottom of the door, 2.13. And then you can also imagine too, like over the years, since this car's been really well maintained, how many times has it been waxed, buffed? How much has it sat in the sun? How much, like, let's measure right here where your arm might be. Like, let's say you're driving the car and right here the paint might wear thin. So let's see what that guy reads. So see, there we go, 1.7. So that would indicate maybe someone's rested their arm here a whole bunch and it's just worn through. Side of the door, 2.27, and the bottom of the door. Oops, we better zero that out and make sure we got a good reading. All right, so we'll go again, 3.2. Dutchman panel and the trunk. All right, so 3.47, 2.3. Well, that's really interesting because you'd think like when the guy is spraying it, that they're spraying it consistently. It's really hard to say though. So let's try another spot on the trunk. 2.8. Go to the edge here. 2. 2.7. Real interesting on the difference of the thickness. We'll do a little bit on the quarter panel and then we'll be done with that. 4.7. So possibly when they sprayed it, he had a little bit of extra paint there. So zero it out and check it one more time. 2.43, 2.9, 3.12. So that's why I think it's real important to reset it back to zero. You can see the inconsistencies. All right, so we also have another original paint car. This is a Los Angeles built 69 Dart. And you can definitely see the disparity between a nice, well-maintained, kept inside kind of a paint job and then a car that spent its life outside in the California sun. And you can tell by the way that it is, this car had been worked on a lot. Both fenders are really worn through. And so let's just take a paint reading here. So 0.9, like really thin. There's the hood, 4. So you can tell this has been like leaned on a lot, you know, someone leaning over the fender and working on it. And then the hood, and you can just tell by the way that it looks, is the hood's been up a ton. And then we'll just do one more on the side and show you that. So 2. So anyway, this is a real handy tool. We don't have to use it on every car, but it's really nice to get an idea of what paint looks like and how thick it is.
All right, so thanks for sticking around to the end to watch the paint measuring device. This is a mil gauge, and this is super handy when it comes to just checking out paint thickness. And it will tell you if there's been any body work done on the car. And I like to take these to car shows or auctions. And obviously with the car show, you better get someone's permission before you start touching their car with it. And I could see some owners just declining that you not use it on their car. But if you go to like a Barrett Jackson or a Mecum auction and you have a bidder's pass, you are allowed to touch the cars. and you can measure the paint. So if you wanted to see like how thick the bodywork is, or if it's a claim to be an original car, this is a real handy device. Anyway, this concludes the whole deal on this 70 Challenger Survivor. Now we do have some other cars in my customer base that are Survivors, and I hope to be doing some more documentation on those. We have a customer, Bill. He's got an AAR. We got a customer, Craig, who has a Duster that he bought brand new, and I don't know. We'll come up with some more Survivors. If you like this kind of content where we document Survivors, please comment. Let me know what you like or don't like. And if there's any other kind of videos you like to watch, we've got some other videos coming up. We're in the paint shop. We've got some how-to videos and just all kinds of stuff. So please comment, please subscribe, and you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook under Mopar Keith or Mopars and Muscle. So thanks again for watching. Take care.